Hello book people, PT here. I am going to talk about 3 of my recent fiction reads today. The first one is Syrup by Max Berry. Well, first of all, the reason I picked up this book is I was a huge fan, you've probably heard me talk about, of Max Berry's most recent novel, Lexicon. This was his first novel and it was written like maybe 10 years before Lexicon. Very different book. So the first thing that I noticed was how different this book was. This is like a satire, I guess I would call it. It's written in a first person, like kind of like really witty kind of style. I would kind of liken it to a Chuck Palahniuk kind of Fight Club kind of a tone to it, although this takes place in the business world. Basically, it's the story of this dude who really wants to get rich, and he has this core philosophy that everyone has $3 million ideas a year, and he's determined to make $1 million before he turns like 25 or something. I don't remember the exact age, but basically he comes up with this idea for this cola, and he takes it to Coca-Cola, and basically lots of political intrigue ensues, but it's all like a satire of business and marketing. Especially it's all about marketing. Like, he and all his marketing friends have gotten rid of their normal names and like come up with new names for themselves to market themselves differently. Like, his name is Scat, his friend's name is Sneaky Pete, and stuff like that. Like, they've changed their name to that to market themselves better. It was pretty good. It was like very different than Lexicon, so it was really not what I was expecting, but I think it was kind of a fun book. One really interesting thing about this, so as I said, you know, he goes to Coca-Cola, and Coca-Cola in this book is doing all sorts of terrible things. So the most interesting thing about this book to me is that they didn't like make up a cola company. It takes place at Coca-Cola. And I can't believe that the legal team of this publisher allowed that to happen. Just because I can't imagine that Coca-Cola would be too fond of the way that they are portrayed. I will say though, you know how in most books there's a little disclaimer at the beginning, like this is all fictional characters and places. It's like a little tiny paragraph. At the beginning of this one, there's like a really long, like half a page thing that talks about how this Coca-Cola company is a fictional version of the Coca-Cola company, and it's no way reflective of, you know, a lot of legalese, not legalese, but a lot of verbiage that I'm sure the legal team made them put in. So this is pretty good. If you like satires and stuff like that, you might want to check it out. I will say I also watched part of the movie that is based on this. It's currently on Netflix. That was not good. That was like, seemed way more sexist for one thing, and like I did not like it one bit. So anyway, the book was pretty okay though. The next thing I wanted to talk about is actually 2 books, and that is Mr. Mercedes and Finders Keepers by Stephen King. This is the first 2 books in his Bill Hodges trilogy. The last one's coming out in the spring. Basically it's about this retired police officer named Bill Hodges, and he takes on in each book he takes on a slightly different case. I'm not going to talk about the plot too much, but I do think it's interesting that Stephen King is taking on this crime genre, and I do like the way that the 2 books are very different. And I was trying to figure out why, and I think when I looked at the dedications of each book, that kind of clarified it for me. The first book is dedicated to James M. Cain, who wrote The Postman Always Rings Twice, which I talked about recently on this channel, and some other books. I think the Mr. Mercedes was written a lot more in his kind of style, where there's bad things happening right away, you know, like just everything was kind of speeding towards this deadly conclusion. It was pretty fast paced, all that kind of stuff. Whereas Finders Keepers is dedicated to John D. MacDonald, who wrote the Travis McGee series, and he wrote Cape Fear. And Finders Keepers is a little bit more slow paced. It's a little more like everything's creeping towards this collision that you know is going to happen, but it's like things are kind of slowly working their way there, and this really builds a good sense of dread as to how things are going to get there. You kind of know where they're going to go, but you're not sure how, which I think is more of a Cape Fear kind of style. Also, Travis McGee, the whole thing of that was that guy had not a detective agency exactly, but I think they called it like a salvage company or something. He had a company he was basically a detective. He would go find lost things. If someone had lost something or had something stolen, he would go recover it for you. And this book is Finders Keepers, and Bill Hodges in this book is basically the same premise. He hires himself out to recover things for people. Yeah, I don't want to say too much about the plot of those, but I do love that one of my favorite writers is taking on one of my favorite genres, crime fiction, in a different way than he has before. And I really enjoyed both those books and really looking forward to the third. The last book I want to talk about is Brandon Sanderson's most recent book, Bands of Mourning, which I just finished and liked it a lot. It's the third book in the Wax and Wayne series. In this one, this is my favorite of that series so far. Again, I'm not going to get into the plot really because it's the third book in the series, but I do think that the characters were very well developed. Some of the characters that I didn't really care much about one way or the other in previous books, I really grew attached to in this book. And I think the reason why is that the action moves away from like their home city that the other books have been in, and they kind of go off and explore a different section of the world. And I think that any time in a book that you kind of get characters out of their comfort zone and see them interact in different ways, it's always interesting, and it worked very well in this book. It also explored and kind of revealed a lot of things about the Mistborn world and our assumptions about it. It revealed a lot of things about Brandon Sanderson's Cosmere, his greater universe in general. So it was a very fascinating read. I liked it a lot. It was a fun adventure story with meat to it and with real consequences, and I dug it a lot. So those are the three books that I wanted to talk about today. I'll be back, I think, tomorrow with a comic book review. So I'll talk to you then. Thanks. Bye.